I prepared speaker. Our speaker today is David Paul Earhart, and he is working on a project. Our education system is called Pathways now. Some, if you've been in Toastmasters previously, you may have not been aware of the name of it now. David Paul is speaking, and his evaluator today is Jennifer. And Jen and David have had some conversations, some back and forth before his speech. So, Jen, would you please give everyone an idea about the objectives of the project that David Paul is speaking from and what you will be looking for as his evaluator?
Absolutely. Thank you, Toastmaster Jan. So I will be actively listening to David's speech and thinking about the things that he does well and the things that he might be able to improve on. This is his second round of this specific speech where he's actually received feedback already. And so I'm going to listen to how he's incorporated that feedback and perhaps delivered on some of those challenges in terms of incorporating them and building his speech to add the pieces that he wishes. So, yeah, I will provide a verbal evaluation after his speech and then also provide a written evaluation to him personally. And I think that is all for now. Back to you, Toastmaster.
Excellent. Thank you for that, Jen. We'll look forward to that. And as an introduction to David Paul's speech, David Paul has been participating in Advocates for almost a year. He moved from Montreal to Victoria in the autumn of 2021 as part of his retirement strategy. He's really enjoying exploring Victoria currently because it's his new home city. David Paul is a songwriter and watercolor painter. When in the work world, he was a teacher of music and English and is a published author. His speech today, the title is The Magic of Metaphors. So please welcome David Paul for his speech, The Magic of Metaphors. David Paul.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. And welcome, fellow Toastmaster members and special guests. Metaphors have been a long journey in my life, and they've been powerful. And I do remember instances throughout my life where I encountered certain metaphors and they really spoke to me. They really had an impact. And one of those cases was when I was in college and we were studying a Shakespearean play in the English literature class, and it was As You Like It. And as it happens, As You Like It contains one of the most beloved metaphors in all of theater and maybe in all of literature. You probably know it, but I'll paraphrase a little bit of it for you to refresh your memory. This metaphor goes, all the world is a stage, and men and women simply players. They have their exits and their entrances, and in a man's time, he can play many, many roles. So that metaphor came to me in that class, and it's a perfect example of what the fundamental of a metaphor is. Fundamentally, a metaphor is a comparison. We have two things being compared. In this case, Shakespeare's comparing the world and how it works, or perhaps you want to think of it as how life works in the real world. And he's comparing that to theater and saying, you know, the people you encounter, they're actors, they're playing roles, and they probably have a lot of roles that you'll never even see. So real life is theater. That is the comparison, the juxtaposition that Shakespeare was using in such a really insightful metaphor. The next aspect of metaphors that it's really important to comprehend, it's kind of like a gateway that we can go through together. And once you understand this, it opens up a lot of literary language and the understanding of it. And it's the use of the literal versus the figurative. And every metaphor has those two things at play. It's a juxtaposition of the literal, which is fact, it's true, and the figurative, which is not fact, it's not true. And we have an image created over here in the figurative that impacts the subject of the metaphor, impacts the section of literal language. Let me bring that to life by introducing you to a metaphor that I have many times stated about myself in my life. I am the black sheep of my family. All the guys in my family are macho, over 200 pounds, hockey, football, hunting, fishing. So the fact that I'm the black sheep of my family sets up a comparison of my role in my family and the image of one black dot in a sea of white that is a herd of sheep. And that black dot is screaming, I am so different. So there's the comparison. And now, with regard to the language, the literal part is I have a role in my family. I am a part of a family. That's real. And my role in the family is real. And you can take it verbatim. On the other side, though, we have me saying, I am the black sheep. Well, when I say I am the black sheep, it might raise a few eyebrows because that is not real. I'm human. I can't be a sheep, black or otherwise. But we suspend our disbelief because the image created over here in the figurative side of things has such an impact on the subject. So describing myself as a black sheep is so much more impactful than saying I'm different, I'm a misfit, I'm the loner in my family. I'm the black sheep. So literal language, you take it verbatim. Figurative language, you kind of take it with a grain of salt because it's not 100% true. I have a little bit of advice for you with metaphors, and it is if you are considering using a metaphor in a speech or in a communication, and I hope you will, it's a really good idea to research it because you may find out something about that metaphor that you didn't know that really impacts the metaphor's meaning and how it should be used. I was in a songwriting class a number of years back, and it was for writing lyrics for songs. And every week we would come and one student would present a lyric and we would give feedback. And there was a young woman who I remember vividly who said, I have a song and the title's The Tip of the Iceberg. And I thought, wow, what a great title. And she proceeded to go through her lyric and read it. And it was all about, I found the love of my life. We have so much in common. It's just exhilarating. And there's so much more where that came from. And so she would enumerate the common interests and then she would recap each stanza with, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. At which point the teacher kind of chimed in and she said, you know, that metaphor comes from the Titanic. And when you say the tip of the iceberg, you are actually referring to what was written by journalists about the Titanic, that the first officer at the helm, he saw the tip of the iceberg and he thought, the fog is lifting, it's pretty far away, I think we're going to be okay. And moments later, that grand ship slammed into the iceberg because with an iceberg, 10% of it is above the surface, 90% of it is all around and below. And that is the truly dangerous part. So our teacher said to us, you can't use tip of the iceberg to suggest good news is coming. It's a bad news metaphor. And to be true to the metaphor, you've got to set it up such that it brings a little bit of a red flag bad news, but the huge amount of bad news can't even be seen. So I recommend that you embark on a metaphor journey if you're looking for a way to make your words catchier, to make your phrases more insightful, to get more responses like, I was fascinated by your speech this evening. If you want that, I think metaphors might be your ticket to get there. And that is why I entitled my speech this evening, The Magic of Metaphors. Madam Toastmaster, back to you.
Thank you, Andrea. So David Paul, is just such a pleasure to evaluate your speech, The Magic of Metaphors. I was a little bit distracted at first because I realized that you weren't recording, but then I really got into it and I was there with you the whole way. So just absolutely fantastic work. You were calm, poised, beautifully spoken as usual, and it was just wonderful to hear you speak. So this is an evaluation of your second speech where you're trying to improve on some notes from your previous speech on this same topic. And I just wanted to go through some of the evaluation from Cayenne and my assessment of that. And so first, the feedback was to stay within the allotted time. I thought your timing was good. I'm not sure of the exact time, but I know that you weren't 5 minutes over. So you did a nice job of being really adherent to time. And so well done there. I know that you were also asked to use hand gestures, and I really appreciated your use of hand gestures. It was noticeable and it was impactful. Your hands were up above the screen, so we could see both of them and we could really see what you were doing. And especially with your description of comparison, where you had one hand and then the other, was really effective, and I thought really added to your speech and made it more impactful for me as a listener. And then you were also asked to work more on feeling comfortable and looking at ease on the Zoom screen. It felt to me that you were quite comfortable. You seemed to be having a lot of fun, which is very important as a speaker. It looked like you were having a good time and you wanted to be there. And so I really commend you on improving on all of those points. It was a highly informative speech. I really thought a lot more about metaphors and how I might use them in my life. I really appreciated how you talked about researching a metaphor. I didn't know about the tip of the iceberg. I will be very cautious to use that in the future. So thank you very much. Your content was dense, and it was clear that it was well researched and quite thoughtful in terms of how you presented it. I really also appreciated your use of storytelling. So you would provide a point, for example, we must research the metaphor, and then provide a story that really kind of punctuated that point. And I quite appreciated that use of a story to really make your point more clear. I just have a few areas where I thought you could improve, but overall, I thought it was just an excellent speech. One piece was actually eye contact. I found that sometimes you looked down and I wasn't quite sure why. I think probably at your timer or your notes, and that's certainly what all of us do, but might encourage you to maybe place your notes a little bit higher around your screen so that when you do look to them, you're not so obviously looking down. That's something we're all working on in Zoom. Sometimes you perhaps lost your train of thought, and this happens to all of us. Maybe you can work on some quick ways to have the audience not detect that you lost your train of thought. So for example, fill in with a hand gesture or a noticeable look at the camera. I myself am not very good at this, but it was just something I noticed. And the final thing was just the sound quality. Just if you are presenting in a more formal capacity on Zoom, I wonder if headphones or something else might help. There's a bit of an echo in your background, just something very small, but it could help for the future. And so in sum, it was just an absolutely fantastic speech. I really enjoy hearing you speak, and thank you so much for such a beautiful speech on metaphors and helping us all to think a little bit more about the metaphors that we use or may aspire to use in our lives. So thank you. And that's the conclusion of my evaluation. Back to you, General Evaluator.
Thank you, Jen. That was a very perceptive evaluation.